Good evening, everybody. We will call this meeting to order. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call vote shows President Soderberg and Commissioner Hankey are absent and excused. At this time, we will entertain citizens' input. I would ask, I'm sorry.
We need to entertain motions to appoint a chairman pro tem for this evening. Who
We have a
do you
motion and a
move to
second.
appoint? Bob?
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
This, Bob? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we will entertain citizen input at this time, and I would ask if you're here for one of the public hearings that you reserve your comments till we open the public hearing. So anybody want to come up and speak?
All right, Melanie Smythe, N140 W17938 Cedar Lane. I'm commenting, first of all, I'd like to say that I saw the truck country sign and it looks fine, so that you should pass that, no problem. It looks great. Second of all, I'm not going to comment on the housing because I think there's a hearing, right, for that one later. Okay. So I am going to comment on the community engagement process. What I handed out were my comments that I sent in about the process. And the reason I did that is because there's no way of knowing whether or not who got them, if they went to you, who they went to. It wasn't explained. And so some of the things that I have in here is just explaining why there's a certain amount of distrust by some of the people who participated in the previous 2050 plan, which was 5 years ago or whatever it was now. Maybe it was 3 years ago. But it was called Planning Our Future Together. Okay, that's the bag that we all got. But there wasn't too much togetherness. I sent in over 100 comments on some of the documents that were submitted, and a few of them were accepted, but certainly not all of them, and certainly not the important ones. And I was never given an opportunity to discuss with any of the decision makers, who is not this group, what was important about those comments, why they should be included in the 2050 plan. All the decisions were made by a small handful of people behind the scenes. So I object to that, which is why in my comments, I am emphatic about having the opportunity for plan commissioners, if they want to, be part of the actual organization process this time. It was handled by staff last time and the consultants. And I think there should be some representation by people who actually live in this community. There's various other things that are on here, discussing the various community engagement tools. Generally, the presentation that was given at the last meeting, which I can't remember which one it was, if it was Village Board or if it was this Plan Commission meeting, from the consultant was positive. So I'm hopeful that they will continue on with what they said they were going to do. However, there needs to be a much stronger representation from the people who live in this village and the people who pay these taxes, so that these kinds of studies can be done. And I also asked the question, to what extent will the village and consultants accept the ideas and comments from the residents, because they weren't last time. And this is something that needs to be publicly stated. It's important. It will add trust to the entire process, and it's needed because it didn't happen before. Those are my comments.
Is there anybody else who would like to comment? Thank you.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road. My comment is just kudos to the Victory Place people for doing the neighborhood meeting. That's something we want to see happen with all of the developers. But I question the wisdom of the staff. I don't know if you're aware that neighborhood meeting was held here in the boardroom. And it was not a posted village meeting. It was just obviously the developer sending out their cards, but you very easily could have run afoul of the open meeting laws. And I think most residents, if they would have driven by the village hall and saw a bunch of cars here, there could be the assumption that it truly is a village meeting and not something that we've allowed some other party to use our facility. Not to mention, I know there were at least 2 board members there and a plan commission member there, where you could have had a quorum potentially, depending on the makeup, if any other board members had found out about the meeting. So just wanting to be sensitive to not having issues and setting a precedent where we would allow every developer to end up using the village facilities for these types of things. There are plenty of places in the community that they could rent or whatever to hold their things, but just being sensitive to public notice and meeting laws. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to provide input? This is just citizen input prior to the agenda. Yes, you're welcome. Any other input? All right. Thank you for the input. We'll move to item A, approval of the Plan Commission minutes of January 12th. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? No opposed. That motion carries. The new business, item A. Premier Real Estate Management LLC, agent for Victory Place LLC, property owner. Application for rezoning 6.87 acres from the institutional zoning district to the RM-2 multiple family residential zoning district for a 48-unit multifamily residential development located on Fond du Lac Avenue and Crimson Road, approximately west 140 north 9889 Fond du Lac Avenue in the Victory Center corridor. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, Premier Real Estate Management LLC, agent for Victory Place LLC, property owners requesting approval of a rezoning application for a piece of property that all of us are familiar with. We considered this property for a development proposal about a little over a year ago. December of 2024 was the last time a developer came before the Plan Commission with a proposal for this particular property. It's 7 acres in size. It's located on Fond du Lac Avenue as highlighted in red. This graphic shows a closer view of the property. Autumn Ridge subdivision to the west, Seven Pines condo development to the north. This parcel was created back in 2000 and rezoned institutional back then. Crimson Road right-of-way, an extension of a short segment of Crimson Road that exists in the Autumn Ridge subdivision just to the left and off the photograph there was intended to be extended through this property as part of a Christian Life Center Church and School District proposal, not school district, but a school proposal back in 2000. The plans were approved, but the development was never built. In 2008, a developer agreement with the village for road construction was terminated, and the development proposal was officially withdrawn. Fast forward to 2024, the property was acquired by Victory Center LLC and proposed with a 68-unit multifamily apartment proposal by Sunstar Real Estate Ventures. That proposal went through a couple of iterations, some consultations with the Plan Commission, and eventually what was presented for rezoning application to the Plan Commission was a 66-unit RM3 multifamily rezoning proposal that in December of 2024 was recommended for denial of the rezoning, and eventually the application was withdrawn. The property is located in the Victory Center corridor under the 2050 plan, as highlighted in red. Under the 2050 plan, the proposed uses, the most desirable use for the corridor is commercial. One of the acceptable uses is multifamily residential with an up to 10 dwelling unit per acre density. This particular proposal has 4 two-story buildings that are proposed with a total of 48 dwelling units at a density of 6.87 dwelling units per acre. Each of the units, 2-bed, 2-bath with approximately 1,200 square feet. Each one would have a private entry, a patio and balcony, and a one-car attached garage. A total of 3 parking spaces are proposed per unit, including 52 guest parking stalls scattered throughout the development on the site. The site plan as presented with the rezoning is shown on the screen. The buildings, wood frame construction, vinyl and shake siding, brick veneer, wainscoting, architectural shingles, perimeter landscaping and berming to enhance the existing buffers that exist around the perimeter property lines. On-site stormwater management is planned. There's a large central open space area, as you can see, in the central portion of the property abutting the Autumn Ridge subdivision to the west. The access to the development is exclusively off Fond du Lac Avenue. The developer is going to be requesting that the existing right-of-way through the property for the Crimson Road extension be vacated. And access would be limited to Fond du Lac Avenue with the possibility of an emergency access point off that existing segment of Crimson that I mentioned earlier through the Autumn Ridge subdivision. It would be, again, emergency vehicle access only if required by the village. And that decision at this point hasn't been decided and would if the project proceeds to the site plan development stage. As I mentioned, the proposed development plan is on screen. With that, we do have representatives from Pre3 here this evening, Emily McFarland and Josh Kinitzer, who would like to say a few words about Pre3 development and their proposed project. Emily, if you could come on forward.
Good evening. I am Emily McFarland. Thank you to those of you that attended on Thursday and came again this evening. With me this evening is Josh from our team, and then Matt. Matt is from Trio, so he's here to answer any type of civil engineering questions that you all may have. So my job here tonight is just to tell you a little bit about us as Pre3 and the way that we like to develop in communities. You heard a little bit already about the proposed development, but for those of you in the room that didn't hear us talk about this last week, Pre3 has been around for decades. We are owned by one gentleman, and he started selling real estate in the 70s. He had then created Premier Real Estate Management, which we operate under Pre3, and that really is to signify the 3 parts of our business. So I've been in your shoes as a plan commissioner, and it's not every day that you get a developer to come in that says, we not only develop property, but then we hold it and we manage it. And I think that's something really special about Pre3. So of the properties we developed, the vast, vast majority of the time, we hold those properties for a long term and we manage them. So we have clearly a development portion of our business. And then the management portion is about 18,000 or so units of housing, give or take. Because the investment side, which Josh does every day as well, is a lot of buying and selling of properties throughout the US. We develop at this point solely in Wisconsin. but we do invest and purchase properties predominantly throughout the Midwest. But you'll see, if you look at a map on our website, you're going to see a couple to the east and west as well. We truly believe at Pre3 in building high quality, low density housing in underserved markets. We do not develop low income housing. We develop market rate housing. If you look at our portfolio, you may see Section 42 properties that we've purchased and manage, but we do not develop them. So this is a little bit more detail than what Jeff shared. I don't even feel like this microphone's doing anything. So can you hear my voice okay? Okay, can you all hear it okay too? Then I can talk to you a little bit better. So what you're looking at here on the screen is our proposed layout. And I'm using that word carefully. We've done obviously some preliminary site work to understand how the site can lay out, but by no means have we done an in-depth level of site design.
We're gonna have a microphone for you over here. Because people are listening, not in here.
Or I'm happy just to stand like this too. Does that work okay? All right.
This will work.
You're gonna really limit me to stay in one spot. I'm clearly a roamer. Feel like I'm Vanna White with this
We can
thing.
hear
So,
you on WebEx.
We've done some preliminary site design, and Matt's here to answer any questions you all may have about site layout and stormwater. Just know that anything here today, should this project continue, would go through that deeper process. And that's what comes back before the Plan Commission and goes through your city team with much greater detail. But what I shared last week and what I think is really important to hear is we took the time and met with folks from the city, and we also read through the meeting minutes, which were very good. So whoever takes the minutes does a great job, because it allowed us to hear the feedback that's been received on other projects. And that's what's informed this layout. So I think the biggest thing you're gonna see is it's less dense. So previous proposals have been in kind of that 9 to 10 acre, oh, sorry, you are recording. I should have known better, apologies. The 9 to 10 unit per acre range. And actually the condominiums are at about 5.7 units per acre, and we're proposing just 1 unit over that. So we're in that 6.9 unit per acre range. And in doing that, I think, and it was in the write-up, what you'll see is of the 7 acres, over half of it we're leaving as green space. And this central lawn is something that will get further refined and developed. We have examples where we've put in gazebos, or we have a picnic area. We really allow that to be largely informed by plan commissioners and by neighbors that can help us understand what may be a good use of that space. But we intentionally left it less dense. The other thing you're going to notice is it's predominantly loaded on Fond du Lac Ave. So acknowledging the residential to our neighbors on pretty much every side, we intentionally moved that development closer to Fond du Lac Avenue. Another item that we noticed in the meeting minutes, and you'll see it around the perimeter of the site, is just maintaining the buffer in the landscape. So we are not only maintaining that berm and buffer and landscape buffer, but adding to it as well. We do keep an on-site management office. That is a dying philosophy in property management, but it's something that we feel really strongly about. So you're going to see an office sited here on our location. And then the only other building that may not be obvious is just the trash receptacles that we have on site. What we're proposing here is our tier 2 product, and I'm going to just flip through these so you can get an idea as I talk about it. Our tier 2 product is our highest end product that we have. And what you'll see here is kind of the mixed textiles in the materials. So a brick or stone veneer, we'll use LP Smart siding. Obviously the gables, just in architectural elements that make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more special than, I think, kind of run-of-the-mill multifamily housing. Something very unique for us is that all of our apartments that we develop have an attached garage. So 1 unit attached, or 1 car attached garage that goes directly into your home. A lot of times you'll see a garage, but it is not always going to be attached to your home. And that's something I think allows us to certainly have kind of that home-like quality to each of our apartment homes. The other thing that we'll point out here is the balconies. Every single apartment home either has a balcony or a patio. This is just an example of our kitchens. So the only thing we make some small iterations of changes over the years. This tall breakfast bar is no more. We don't use this taller bar anymore. It's just a lower breakfast bar at a regular counter height. So I just want to point that out right away. But what isn't going to change is the LVP flooring, the granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. We've changed our lighting to make it look just a little bit more contemporary, and the shaker cabinets remain. This is a photo of our living room, and the thing that obviously I hope is jumping out at you is the fireplace. So this is something that we offer in this Tier 2 product, and then also the exterior access to the first floor patio. Here is a photo of our bathrooms. Same finishes that you'll see in our kitchens. We do often get questions about the shower, so we try to always have a photo without that so you can see it's that kind of larger step-in shower area. All of them, as Jeff said, are 2-bedroom, 2-bath. This one is an example of our master with the ensuite bathroom and then also the laundry facilities. So all of our apartment homes come with a full washer and dryer in the individual apartments. If this works, we're going to play just a very brief video. This is just a 2-minute video that we actually got last week, but is a great example. This is a current project in Eagle River. This is the exact quality and level of product that we would be building here in Germantown. And so we thought we'd show you it. If it works, I'm happy to keep, yeah, you go ahead. So this is a video that we received from our general contractor, and I'll be quiet so you can listen to some like elevator style music and see the development process. Hopefully, actually I'll talk over it. So hopefully what you'll see here is the exterior finishes, the quality of those. I mean, you're not really missing out on that music, but. So this is an upgrade that we recently did, was the shiplap over the fireplace. So that's a good design change that you may notice from the photos I just showed you. Here's that breakfast bar that's no longer bar height, but just counter height. As this is playing, I'll just share, I think something that chronically sticks out for me, even though I've looked at the product many, many times, is because we build and hold, our owner's building a portfolio for his family, for his daughters, for generations of family members of his to own. We don't skim on the front end because we build, hold, and maintain. We don't want to put in a low quality product that then is a pain for us on the back end with property management. So the finishes are something that I think is, especially at these price points, are just something that are particular for us and a couple other developers too. There's certainly other good ones, but a lot of times you'll see, people will get a lot of investors into their projects and they need to be able to pay those investors back in a shorter period of time. We just don't have those limitations. So it allows us to have a bit more flexibility on higher quality finishes. I just a couple more slides that really just touched on a couple of frequently asked questions. If you were there on Thursday, it's not all of them, but I tried to keep the ones that were most relevant. There we go. So obviously, as a plan commissioner and as a person that's here, I presume you're interested in the integration with the existing neighborhoods. And some of these things I've already touched on, but really, and I'm not going to read all these to you, I just want those in the room and those on the plan commission to know that the previous comments didn't fall on deaf ears, not for us anyway. Your city team did a great job of educating us on what those are. The minutes again reflected really good detail for us, and we intentionally put forward a design that we felt like was responsive to those comments. Some of these I've touched on, but really what we're looking to do is provide much needed housing and allow it to be a nice buffer for the existing residential neighborhood. Traffic is always one that comes up. Obviously, a more robust traffic study is going to be needed if this were to move forward with the integration with State Highway 145. But we did work with our engineering team, and they did provide us that last bullet point there. So if you look at peak evening hours, this development would add about 24 cars. So 15 going in, 9 going out. So we're talking the busiest time of day. That's the potential impact. And we again are directing all those out onto Fond du Lac Ave. Here's just a layout of next steps. I'm not going to step through them all, but I share this always so that folks in the room, and obviously as planning commissioners, you already know this, but this is by no means, a one and done. There are many steps that have to occur for public input. We are a developer that likes to hear that input, which is why we host the neighborhood meetings that someone mentioned. It allows us to hear what people are looking for. I'm not suggesting this, but I have been in public meetings or neighborhood meetings where we've talked about types of trees and the amount of lumens that come off a light. And listen, if that's what makes people feel heard, and it's something that seems very reasonable, those are the types of things we do our best to accommodate. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I believe you all would like to hear from the public perhaps before.
Can I get my clicker back for you? Emily, we'll call you back up for questions after public comments. Thank you. For the Plan Commission's benefit, when we get to a point of discussion, we do have some renderings that were included in the packet, building elevations, floor plans as well that we can go over if necessary. The property is located in the Victory Center corridor under the 2050 plan, as I mentioned earlier. Desirable uses are commercial, but acceptable uses do include residential and multifamily up to 10 dwelling units per acre. The proposal is consistent with that aspect of the 2050 plan. It's proposed at a much lower density, 6.9 dwelling units per acre. The proposal is consistent with our housing market demand, product type, and cost recommendations that came out of the 2024 Tracy Cross residential market analysis that was done for the village. The proposal has fewer units and a lower density than the original Sunstar proposal that terminated back in 2024, that being again 66 units at 9.5 dwelling units per acre. In terms of suitability for multifamily residential uses, as has been discussed in the past by staff, this particular property and residential development proposed would provide a relatively lower impact transition and buffer between the single family residential uses to the west and Fond du Lac Avenue and the commercial uses and landfill to the east. The density and the building types are comparable to the Seven Pines condominiums to the north that has 36 units in 9 buildings at a density of 5.7 dwelling units per acre, slightly lower than this particular proposal. The higher density as infill is suitable for smaller parcels with challenging characteristics in the Victory Center corridor. This is a concept that we've discussed in the past and staff has promoted. Generally, as opposed to 60 acres of multifamily development, 5 acres with a handful of units here and there, much like, for example, the infill project just up the road near Donjas Bay, the Coburg Junction PDD and the 4-unit townhouse complex was an infill project that was approved by the village in a similar manner. As you recall, last year we were directed to keep track of the multifamily to single family ratio with respect to a housing balance, if you will, in the village of Germantown. The baseline numbers that were established as of January 1, 2024 had a baseline of 75% housing units, single family to a 25% multifamily. The individual pre-3 48 unit proposal does increase that multifamily ratio to 25.4 on its own. Cumulatively with other approved projects since 2024, which would include the Sutton Farm development and the Carillion just across the street on Division that was approved a short time ago, yields a multifamily ratio that goes up to 26.1%. In terms of financial impacts, estimate of potential property taxes This development would generate approximately $36,000 for the Village of Germantown per year, $54,000 per year for the school district, and a total of $108,000 per year for all of the taxing jurisdictions for the Village of Germantown. In terms of impact fees and connection fees, those one-time fees are estimated to be approximately $412,000. With respect to school district and student enrollment impacts, this particular property is located in County Line Elementary attendance area number 58. Student projections in the MD Rofers report with a student projection or a student generation rate of 0.11 students per multifamily unit at 48 units would yield approximately 5 students in that K to 12 range. The 2025 MD Rofers report assumed a total of 84 new development units in attendance area number 58, with 64 multifamily units assumed by the year 2027, and an additional 20 new single-family attached or duplex units in a later 2035 to 2040 time period. Obviously, the 48-unit pre-3 proposal is less than the 64-unit assumption in the MD Rofers report, and consequently, the proposal would not change the MD Rofers student enrollment projections, nor the capacity implications in that report. That are that the County Line Elementary School is projected to be under capacity through 2040, and the Kennedy Middle and High Schools are also projected to remain under capacity through 2040, and this project at 48 units would not impact those projections. With regard to the Crimson Road extension, unlike back in 2024, staff was fairly adamant about wanting to keep the Crimson Road extension in the proposal, admitting, however, that it was not a critical link to the overall street system. This time around, both the fire department, the police department, and DPW staff agree again that Crimson Road is not a critical connection to the overall street system and is not going to be recommending or pushing for that Crimson Road extension. However, DPW and the Parks and Recreation staff are recommending that a pedestrian or bicycle connection between the Amber Drive and the Autumn Ridge be provided somehow or some way through the development to Fond du Lac Avenue. It had been discussed at some point at a staff level, possibly in the alignment as shown on the screen, snugged up against the south property line in some manner. Depending upon your direction this evening, that may proceed as a recommended course of action to be considered down the road. Principally, the reason for not pushing hard for that Crimson Road connection can probably fall back on a graphic like this that shows in the quarter section for the village that is residential development that would be served in part by the Crimson Road extension. There are already 7 points of connection on Donjas Bay, Fond du Lac Avenue, and County Line Road, all shown here with the yellow arrows that provide cross connection between the subdivisions of Windsong, Berrywood, Sunbury Downs, Sunbury Woods, Treetops, the Autumn Ridge subdivision. All of those have the ability to get from one to the other internally, and therefore the Crimson Road extension shown here, circled in red, highlighted in the dash blue, again, is not deemed to be a critical component to the overall connection and circulation system. If the rezoning is approved for this project, the remaining steps that are required would be a traffic impact analysis, site development and building plans, a certified survey map, a right-of-way vacation, a development agreement with the village, a construction plan review and approval, including utilities, stormwater management, landscaping, lighting, signage, et cetera, and eventually building permits for construction, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and so on. With that, the staff recommendation is to approve the proposed rezoning for the 7-acre Victory Place LLC property from the institutional to the the RM2 multifamily residential zoning district for purposes developing a 48-unit multifamily residential community, subject to 5 conditions that are included in the staff report. With that, Bob, we could go to public hearing.
All right, thank you, Jeff. I call this public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at N112W17001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date, Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 6:30 PM or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents for or against a rezoning application to rezone the following described property from the institutional zoning district to the RM-2 multifamily residential zoning district for the purpose of developing a 48-unit multifamily residential development on 6.98 acres. Applicant is Premier Real Estate Management LLC, agent for Victory Place LLC, property owner. Property is 6.98 acres located on the Fond du Lac Avenue and Crimson Road, including tax parcels number 354963 and tax parcel 354978. A more detailed meets and bounds description is provided in the notice. A copy of the application and a map showing the property described above are on file at the Community Development Department, Planning and Zoning Services Office in the Germantown Village Hall and can be viewed on the village's website. So with that, I will, anybody interested for or against the development can come up now and speak. And I would ask anybody coming up to speak, please have the yellow application form, which you do.
I can take that.
He could take that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I live on Knowcrest Circle and with my husband, and I wanted to tell you why I oppose this building. I'm concerned, one, about more traffic, more noise, and crime. Knowcrest Circle is a quiet, safe community, and I really don't care to have something like this there. And then with that, a lowering of our property values. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against the proposed development? Welcome.
My name is Todd Steiner. I lives.
I'll take your slip, Todd.
You could give the yellow slip to him.
Yeah, I got Philip.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. I'll follow. I've lived across the street from that area for my whole life, so 58 years. I originally grew up with my parents there, then built 2 houses to the north of that, next to this now soccer field over there. So I've lived my whole life there. And you know, when this came up last time, when they were looking to build and all that, there were 2 big concerns, right? One was property density. We all know that, right? The other thing that the residents made really very clear, I thought at least, but maybe not, was we want owner occupied. We don't want rentals. You know, I know, you know, great speech and everything else, and I would do my best sales pitch on it and everything else too, as far as, you know, why rentals are great. But the bottom line is the rentals are great for the developer. They're really not that great for the community. The reason they're not that great for the community is that because Seven Pines is a prime example. They built a beautiful facility. It's owner occupied, and the property values go up literally every year, just like every home does in the area. They get taxed accordingly. They get reassessed every couple of years, and the property taxes keep going up on it. It's a good deal for everybody. When they sell, they make a big profit on it, which is great for them. They've earned that. They keep their properties up really nice. There's incentive to do so. And they get taxed accordingly. It's a win for the community. It's good for everybody. With apartments, again, it's only the developer that wins in that situation. You think that the people renting there, you say, well, it's a win for them. They're getting a nice place and all that. True, but for most of them that are going into rent, they're paying $25,000 a year in rent and realize they can't save enough money by the time they pay their food card and everything else to be able to save money to actually buy a house. So they're kind of stuck in that quagmire, and they tend to rotate in and out probably every 9 months to every 2 years, I'm guessing, is what they're going to rotate in and out at, because let's face it, $25,000 a year is a tremendous amount of money for them. From a tax standpoint, they don't go up in value as much as an owner occupied place does. In fact, they fight against it because they try to keep pushing depreciation, lower property value over the length of time in it and everything else. So they fight it to keep their taxes down as best they can. I totally understand that. And if I ask the developer, what he'd tell me is, Todd, you can't rape the willing. If they want to pay the rent and everything else, that's on them. That's not on us, which is true. But again, they're really truly the only winner in that situation. When a place in Seven Pines goes up for sale, if they're on the market for 48 hours, it's a long time. They sell real quick. In other words, why cannot we not turn this into owner occupied housing? I get why you guys don't want to do it. Totally understand why you guys don't want to do that. But for the community, we don't really need more apartments right now. And in fact, you go a half mile to the south and you go down Main Street, Menominee Falls, all the way out to 41, 45. It's all apartments and it's mostly rental all the way through there. It's going to look like Pottersfield from the movie Wonder If It's a Wonderful Life long term. That's exactly what it's going to look like long term is Pottersfield. And that's what's going to happen there. And there's no doubt about that. You know, again, nice building, nice everything else. I know they like to hold long term. I appreciate you making that statement, but as the great J.D. Souther said, time passes, things change. I'm guessing the owner probably isn't 30 years old anymore. Don't know if he's 60, doesn't matter to me. You can be hit by a bus tomorrow, just like I could be, right? But time passes, things change. When Waste Management came in and built the dump, we were promised in 20 years it was going to be capped and it was going to be turned into a ski hill. Ski hill didn't happen. 20 years after that, we were told it's going to be turned into a recreational park. That didn't happen either. We're still got a dump. They told me they would test our ground well water every quarter for the rest of my life just to make sure, because we all got wells. They did that for almost 2 years. Time passes, things change. We haven't been tested since. We got a 400-foot deep well. You know, maybe it'll get there in 2 years, maybe it'll get there in 20 years. We don't know, right? It's a stinky thing. When the soccer field came into us next, that was, you know, Todd, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. It's going to be great. You know, they only played 2 nights a week. What they didn't tell me was each team plays 2 nights a week. It's 7 nights a week. Don't worry, Todd, they're going to shut it down by 8:30. 10:15 is when they shut down. The first one went bankrupt. The second one came in. It just keeps dumbing down and dumbing down. Time passes, things change. I used to have wildlife coming into my backyard. Deer, turkeys, geese would come walking up. Now the only wildlife I get is car radios being turned up and down when they're coming in and pulling out or beeping the horns at one another, letting each other know they're coming. That's the wildlife I only got now. Again, all good intentions. Everything starts out with good intentions, but there's zero reason why this shouldn't be owner occupied land. How do we go from a church to apartment building rentals? It makes no sense to me. I mean, I get why you would want to do that, but I tell you what, you put a for sale sign on that property, you might get one resident to put a big home on there too. You might get 2 homes on there. You might get 4 homes on there. As long as it's owner occupied, it's still a better thing for the community. Better taxes long term. Better for Germantown. We got houses everywhere. We got apartments now going up everywhere. I mean, it's gotten to the point of insanity here. And I know at some point I'm going to be forced out too. It'll happen. But in the meantime, let's get this thing right. You got one chance to get it right. And I know, you know, for the board members, I get it. If it's not in your backyard, it gets looked at differently. But the reality of it is it does affect all of us. So we got to get this right. And again, I am totally opposed to rentals because you cannot guarantee, just like I can't guarantee if it's ever going to be subsidized one day. We don't know. Again, time passes, things change. Northridge Lakes, prime example. What happened? Northridge was closed within 5 years. Total disaster. Same thing can happen at any time. And again, beyond any of our controls of why that happens, and you can't guarantee it won't happen. Nobody can.
Thank you.
We just don't need it.
Could you have some closing statements? We limit everybody to 4 minutes.
Sure,
please.
no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else willing to come up and speak in favor or against the development? Is there anybody on WebEx? Oh, you're, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see you over this. Welcome.
live at W142 and 9862 Amber Drive. This is actually directly in my backyard. And when we had this conversation back in 2024, what Todd said, it was all about, we wanted owner occupancy. We didn't want the transient traffic and people that just aren't invested in the neighborhood. So I can't say it more eloquently than Todd, so I'm gonna leave it at that, but just wanted my voice to be heard.
Thank you. Is there anybody else willing to come up to speak in favor or against the development? Anybody else? Do we have anybody else on WebEx?
Can you hear me? No,
Said
we do
Deb
not.
was monitoring WebEx.
Yes, Deb or Jordan, can you jump in and
We
tell
are
us if
on
there's
here.
anybody
You
on
can't
WebEx?
hear us.
Martin
Hello?
said no.
Nope, we're good.
Okay. So with that, we will close this public hearing. So now we'll open this up for discussion with the plan commissioners. I would entertain a motion first and a second before we get into discussion. Okay, you have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll open this up to questions and discussions. Yeah, Josh?
I like the density, obviously, compared to the last time around, that obviously a different developer, but the density being reduced is refreshing, that it's not trying to peg the limit of what is allowable there. The Crimson Road connection, I don't understand if the path, I guess the whole development is it private roads or would it be village responsibility?
They're intended to be private.
And then the path as well?
That hasn't been discussed at this point. I guess before we start running, we'll walk and talk about whether that's a desirable feature to have.
I would say, so this driveway that's shown here, and then all the gray throughout is a private drive. We did talk about the shared use path. It's something that we've talked about with our engineer to determine if it would be possible. It is indeed possible. We just wanted to make sure that that was still a desire of this body. And in the event that we would have that, Liz, I haven't talked about it to Jeff's point with the village. From my experience, it can go either way. They can be private, they can be public. Generally, if we want if the intention though is to have the folks from the neighborhood to make their way safely to the sidewalk, it would typically be a public right of way. Otherwise, we'd have to do
Sure.
easements, but I think that's something that would get flushed out in a development agreement.
Thank you.
Yep.
Then Jeff, as far as rentals versus owner occupied, does the village have a ordinance, like, can we mandate that? We can't change that, can we?
No, we don't have an ordinance that addresses that.
So when the developer comes forward with a proposal that works for them, we can't say, well, it looks great, but it has to be condos that are owner occupied. We don't have that.
No, we don't have that. I mean, we don't regulate single-family homes or prohibit them from renting their properties or the condos for that matter. They're just upfront about it.
Yep.
And that's their business model.
And I like that there's the on-site management there. If the office is there and occupied and somebody's on site to maintain the facilities, that's usually more helpful. But those are just general statements I have, from what I've heard so far. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Yes, Bill?
I guess for me, as a person from 50,000 feet, I can see rental homes in Germantown, sounds fine. But as a citizen and a property owner, I have a problem because we've seen this all happen here before. We've seen the areas over by Northridge that somebody bought out. That's the prime example. That's what everybody thinks about when somebody wants to put apartments in Germantown. Big promises, very nice apartments, very good clientele living in those apartments, and all of a sudden it went south and it's a mess. I wouldn't want to even drive there during the middle of the day. So that's what I think you have to somehow find a way to convince everybody that it's going to be different here.
Sure. So I think one of the better data points I can point to somewhat indirectly, but I think it still gets at the question is, when you think about multifamily housing, typically in stabilized market rate multifamily housing. So that's what we're talking about here today. So when I say stabilized, I mean not brand new, because you're going to have a variety of occupancy trends at the point where buildings are just opening. But when you're talking a stabilized multifamily market rate development, traditionally you're going to see like 40 to 50% turnover. We generally see about 20 to 30. So we see about half that turnover. And really it's because of the type of building that we build. You have the garage, you have a front door, you have 1,100 to 1,200, 1,150 to 1,250 square feet. You know, it really is, it operates more like a single family home. So I think for us, the turnover is a good one that I could point to that would be able to say, you know, how do you prevent this from, you know, becoming crime ridden? The other thing I can say is, you know, Josh can speak to the way in which we buy and sell the properties we have. We have one person that we work for. At times, he develops with one other gentleman who's in his 80s and just likes to be a part of development deals. I think I can't convince you, but I can tell you this. I handed you all a handout, and if you came to the neighborhood meeting, you got one. I'm happy to give one. We pointedly give you our references. We're telling you, call those cities, ask them how we're doing for them. Ask them if their police are having difficulties with our properties. You know, ask them if our landlord or our on-site property managers are doing their jobs. And you know what? Don't even call those 4 or 5. Call any of them. You're going to, of course, have an anomalous story here or there, but when you own the amount of housing that we do and you approach it in the manner that we do, we're completely confident giving you our references, because we know that when we have issues, we respond to them. And as we develop, we think about important things like layouts and sight lines and entrances and on-site managers. This is a little bit soapboxy, but I'm going to say it way less eloquently than Josh would, because Josh is much more the finance person in this equation. But the ability to own a home right now is higher and more insurmountable than it's ever been. It's something like a $500,000 home. Do you want to?
Oh, sorry. So yeah, $500,000 home. Assume you're getting a 90% loan. Sometimes you can put 20% down, but assume you're getting a 90% loan. Rates have doubled in the last 5 years. So you're up to 6.5% on your loan. So your principal and interest payment by itself is over $2,000. You got to pay your property taxes. You know, assume that, I mean, if it's $5,000 tax bill, you divide that by 12. You've got insurance you got to pay on the home. So when you add those 3 components together just by themselves, your monthly payment's about $3,200 for a $500,000 home today. So that's just kind of when you're talking about home affordability versus rental affordability. You know, you see $2,100 a month. It's like, wow, that's a lot. You compare it to a single family home ownership, it's actually still affordable. So that's kind of the math on that. And then I would just, as a part of the property question and how we maintain things and crime, I mean, we've got properties near Germantown and Hartford. We've got 2 properties in Jackson. We've got a property in Saukville. Similar product, this type of product that we're building or proposing to build in Germantown. I'd encourage you to drive those sites and just take a look and see how we maintain them and see if it looks like there's issues at the property. So those are just a couple of comments I'd like to make.
So I can't promise you anything, but I can at least, that's the best that we can offer. And I wouldn't try to do more because I would just be selling you a story. I can't promise to over a lifetime, but I feel confident in saying that what we are presenting to you all, what we've done in other communities, I think our work speaks for it. I would hope that could give folks some confidence.
Okay, good. Yeah. No?
Sorry, I'm gonna have a lot of questions, so I apologize in advance in a few different areas.
Let me get my pen out.
Yeah, first I'm gonna start on the tax side. This is more directed at Jeff. Jeff, just in running the numbers at the approximated assessed value of the development at about $8 million, we'd have to put 8 $1 million homes in there, 16 $500,000 homes. Given this size, I don't know from a development standpoint if that's feasible, but I hear all the comments and questions about this being owner occupied. Since the church backed out, have you had any in-depth discussions with any developer who would have been interested in putting owner occupied housing in that area?
No, not in the 20+ years that I've been here.
So, I mean, I hear all the comments about what we would like there, but the problem is if no one's willing to come in and put it there, I mean, the village can't force a developer to come in and propose a single family or owner occupied development in that space. The second tax question is actually related to Russ. Russ, at 5 students generating about $55,000 of tax revenue for the school board, is that $10,000 or $11,000 per student in line with, or do we have metrics at about what a student generates in terms of, or what a property generates in terms of per student tax revenue in the district?
You're comparing the estimated 54,000
Yeah,
annually.
with 5 students that they're estimating this. Yeah,
Student.
right.
I can look at the numbers on it. I don't want to comment on, but I can talk about a couple other things when it comes to rentals and the school district. So this is right on the border of Mac and County Line. It actually falls into County Line. Some of you may know we already have an alternative section of residential that can go either to Mac or County Line based off of school district needs. So it's not actually the people living there's needs, but it's what the school district would need at the time of the enrollment. That was done because of apartment rentals, and it was to depressurize either County Line because it is actually one of our most populated elementary schools, or to depressurize Mac, who gets the overburdened action of renters coming in and coming out. And what we do see is between a $400,000 and $500,000 swing of school costs, district costs in employees, based off of late rental turnover, whether we either need to invest in a new teacher or new FTE, which is problematic when you have to do that in August when these renters come in, because the landscape for qualified educators is pretty well picked over at that point, understandably so for them, as well as if we overstaff in preparation and we have a bunch of students leave based off of rentals. And it wouldn't be one site such as this that would affect it, but it'd be the totality of rentals in the Germantown School District. So when you ask for rental information, that's where the school district gets a little touchy. So would technically 54,000 costs on top of the state aid? I think it would cover it. But does it cover the need in regards to staffing and that influx or decrease as needed? You get into class sizes and all that too, if you want, but
No,
I can kind of hold that and go into that a little bit.
No, I appreciate that. All right, now some questions related to the development.
I'd like to point out though too that Commissioner Ewert wears another hat. He is the school board president, so hence the reason for the detailed knowledge. We appreciate that input.
Thanks. You had made a comment earlier that you hold a vast majority of your property. What can you define what vast majority means? Like, what is the average holding period of the units you currently hold? And have you had developments where you flipped them in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? I'm just trying to get an idea of what when you say vast majority and you hold most of them, what that
Sure.
means.
I'm going to have Josh answer that question more specifically. So mosey on up here. But the reason I say vast majority and not even nearly all, which is what I anticipate Josh is about to say, is to the gentleman's earlier point. I don't want to overpromise then be like, well, I found 2 out of the last 10, and that, just leaves it open to subjectivity, but.
Yeah, so predominantly speaking, our market rate developments, which we do in Wisconsin, which is what we're proposing here, those are, our principal is usually the primary owner in it. At times, we bring in another individual, which Emily mentioned earlier, who's just an individual in his 80s. He's a large apartment owner just in the state of Wisconsin. our principal and this partner have been doing business together for over 40 years. In those instances, they typically partner 50-50. In all those instances, we still manage the property for them. We're his property management company, so they may partner. At times, he may own the whole thing, but at the end of the day, we're still the ones that are managing the properties for him. So when it comes to our market rate development, there isn't a lot of things that would be, as you so-called, leaving the shop where we're not hands-on and managing it from a day-to-day perspective.
So you have no developments currently where you have an on-site management, but you're outsourcing to a third party to do your property?
No, we don't outsource any of our property management. We do it all in-house, and that includes not just Wisconsin. We're in 16 other states. We manage every single property in those 16 states. It's all us, no one else. So.
And do you have an estimate on terms of the holding period of the inventory you have? I mean, are your developments 5 years old, 10 years old, 2 years old?
So as far as like the holding period, I mean, that's more of a question as it relates to, like, if you've heard of groups called like Continental and Fiduciary, those are groups that are going out and raising equity. So they're, they'll go out and raise $50,000 from this person or $100,000 from that person. Those are when you start hearing more of these hold period, because they're all trying to hit a certain return where they can give the money back to their investors. Because our structure is our owner is the one who's investing in these projects, or the one partner we use, we don't really look at it from a hold perspective or a return perspective, because the motivations are just different. We're really, our owner just likes to continually build. He's been doing it for 40 years. We're constantly tweaking our units, trying to make them a little bit better. Emily mentioned that he's got next generation of family members who are in the business. So a lot of what he's doing now isn't necessarily for him. It's just about, his family legacy. So that's why you don't see really the new development things, leaving our company or our management.
Okay, understand. What I'm trying to get a feel for is the comments about things change. I mean, obviously, if your business model is that you're flipping things in 2 years, things are going to change, right? But if you're telling me your business model is you hold and you don't sell, I mean, I know you can't guarantee me you're never going to do it, but if you tell me your holding period is typically on average 10 years versus 2 years, I mean, that's a big difference in the things change world. So that's why I'm trying to get an idea of what you guys say when you say you hold the vast majority of your property, or what's the life or age of the developments that you are currently owning and managing. So I can get a gauge as to, again, is this a 2-year thing or is this a 10-year, 20-year thing? So, I appreciate you telling me you hold the vast majority, but that doesn't tell me like that you build it and then you hold it for a year. And I can say our business model is we build and hold, but after a year you sell it. That's why I'm just trying to get an understanding of what you mean.
No,
We're not building it on.
no.
I mean, and you can say that, but does your results, do your results support that comment?
Right. There's no metric that we're trying to hit that would cause us to say, all right, now's the time where we're going to sell.
And I think that's what Josh was explaining. And I'm deferring to Josh because I have only been with Pre3 for a handful or so of months, so I can't speak to the history. But when I met Pre3 and what I learned of Pre3 was we build, we hold, and we manage. And the reason we can't answer that specifically, although I'll see what type of data we can get after the fact, is because we don't have a predetermined idea of when we'll sell, if we sell.
Right.
Okay.
But I can certainly, if you give me a time frame, you're like, Emily, tell me how many of the properties you've developed in the last 10 years you've sold. We can figure that out.
Okay, but yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great. Okay, and then as it relates to your tenants, can you just tell me what your typical lease term is? Is it 1 year, is it 2 years, or is it 6 months? What are you typically requesting?
Yeah, so when we sign on a tenant, we sign them to an initial 12-month term
12
lease.
months, okay.
Yep.
With security deposit?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. And we run criminal background checks.
okay, that was my
drug
next
checks.
question, okay.
We have our own, and I can't speak to that as well because I'm not on the property management side of the business, but I do know we run criminal checks. We do run credit checks,
Right,
background
okay.
checks. We check references, rental references. We look for any non-payment history or late payment history. So we have our own criteria to qualify tenants.
Okay, perfect. That was my last question was, can you tell me what your criteria qualifications are? Do you run background credit, criminal checks, things like that on tenants? So I appreciate you sharing that.
$100 a month of rent, you know, that's someone being able to have the savings and the income to be able to come up with nearly $5,000 the first time they're looking to sign a lease, because they have to pay that security deposit. I do want to mention just one thing about the lease term. Your comment lived with me after our meeting last week, and so we did talk about it. We generally do the 12-month lease and then month to month. We generally do that. But if we don't want to put a school district in a sticky spot, and hearing that was the first time I'd heard that from a school board, which is probably why it stuck with me. So we talked about it, and if that's something that's going to be a barrier for the district, we do have certain areas of the state where we don't do 12-month or we don't do month to month after that 12-month. So if you're, what I said to Josh after that meeting, I was like, well, what if it would help them? And I picked January. Once we get everyone on, to then get everyone to a January lease, then the district would know ahead of time. Is that something we could probably do? And he was like, yeah, it's definitely something we could work on. So if this continues and that's ever something that would be of help to the district, that's just to let us know, and we'll see what we can work out together.
All right, think about. Couple of questions. So do you have a average age of your tenants? Is that metric out there?
No.
Okay.
And there, you know, I say that in some jest, but the truth is we don't, because when you own 18,000 or you manage 18,000 units of housing, the age range is vast. Some are particularly seniors. Some are in areas where they're more in tune to families. What we develop, we typically know is, 4 to 8 kids in a development this size. So we're likely not leaning towards large families or people perhaps of the early family age of life. We do also know that we get tenants that are downsizing. We get tenants that are just ready to not have the maintenance needs of a home. We get folks who are coming into a community and this is the way they can get in while they wait for a single family home to become available. I've been in so many meetings and had so many conversations about rent versus own, and I heard someone say once, multifamily housing really is the welcome mat for single family home ownership. You welcome people into your community, they get established, and then they want to be able to buy a home when they can either A, afford it, or B, one is available, which both are quite difficult right now. So I think the easiest way to answer that is we get the entire gamut. Single folks, people that are looking and saving for their first home, people who we have people that just, when you have 1,200 square feet, there's people who just live the majority of their lives in our apartments, and then downsizers as well.
I understand the stigma of renting in that, but rental properties are an important component of a healthy housing market in any community. I think you could speak to that, be running a community.
Yeah. So go ahead. I certainly could. So.
And the way I kind of put it into my terms, for example, the house I'm in, I've been in this house for 36 years when we first moved to Germantown. And all of a sudden, maintenance in that backyard is getting larger. I don't know how that happens, but maintenance of all of that. And at some point, I'm sure I'll be thinking of, getting into a place without that kind of maintenance. And, I certainly would consider something like this.
Mhm.
Our goal is to keep residents in Germantown, whether they're young families, because we have a lot of industrial parks out there. And a lot of these people don't live in Germantown that work at these industrial parks because they can't afford it. I mean, the average single family home is $450,000 here. It's a huge chunk of change. So I feel it's necessary for any community to maintain that health. And I think, Jeff, maybe you could help me. I mean, we've looked at, or other developers had looked at this, not only this parcel, but other parcels along this Victory corridor. And the numbers just don't work out as far as single family.
Well, we haven't had too many development proposals that include single family along the corridor. As long as I've been here, most recently we had some discussions with the Friends family and their 60-plus acre property further north on Fond du Lac Avenue on the east side, they proposed a rather significant development with over 600 and some units, including some, what I would term, single-family attached duplex-type condos.
That's just north of Donjas Bay.
Yes, correct. But beyond that, as I indicated earlier, for this property and the other properties along the corridor, and there aren't that many, and they tend to be 10 acres or smaller, we haven't had a lot, if any, residential development proposals other than the higher density multifamily. Or like I mentioned earlier, the Greg Nagel, Kuberg Junction, 4-unit townhome infill project. That was probably the other most recent approved residential development project along the corridor.
Okay. Going to get into the weeds just a little bit here. So the path, pedestrian path or bikeway, you looked into it and said it really wouldn't impact the development really in any way, losing that
I'm gonna bring up the engineer.
right away. All right, engineer to engineer. Yeah, I was, so there was a lot of discussion about the pedestrian walkway. And I didn't want the development to be compromised to try to shoehorn the space for a pedestrian walkway, which is shown on the south side of the development.
Yeah, so I would envision a walk.
Site plan. There we go. So we talked about it potentially coming off of Crimson and running along here. I think the question is, if we indeed would move forward with that, does that compromise the site layout?
Yes.
I think the site layout standpoint, it certainly would fit, like we have it. Obviously, it would take up some of that buffer area space, with potential landscaping. But certainly with the site layout we have, I think there's plenty enough space for a walkway there. It just, you're losing a little space for potential trees, bushes, shrubs.
So your development is with the vacation of the right of way for Crimson, correct? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not in favor of that connection being made. I don't see what the purpose of that would be for. So, I'm on board with you guys as far as vacating that, but I would like to see a pedestrian walkway. We're trying to get continuity throughout the village as far as walks and bikeways and things like that. So I'd be all in favor for that. This is probably a little detailed. I know you've got the renderings, you show the renderings, and you probably have an approximate elevation, altitude, height. And would you have a rough idea of where the top of your buildings come relative to the buildings to the west? From being out there and looking at it, I don't think you'd be blocking the view of the subdivision of the homes to the west, but I'm not sure. And I don't know if it would be a selling point or a detriment. I don't know. Just for something
Generally
for everybody to
speaking,
ponder.
I haven't studied it precisely, and I'm just thinking speculation, based on, because I'm not familiar with the neighboring homes there.
Because you are lower.
We are lower, we will be building up, so when you come in the driveway, most likely we'll be climbing a few feet, so those buildings will sit a little bit higher. But generally speaking, it's a balanced site, we'll be very close to existing grade with the finished floors.
Okay. Just wanted the neighbors to get an idea of what they might be seeing as they look out their window. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
And I think obviously, as you know, some of the devil is in those details, and that gets fleshed out at a site plan level. So like if we get through rezoning, then that's a further detailed dive.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. That's my questions for now. Are there any other questions from the, yes, Russ?
I kind of have a list, so we'll just kind of go through. Talking about the company, you said it's generational. They're trying to build a portfolio to pass down to generations. Where are we in that process? Or where are you in the process? Yeah, is it generation one owner operating?
First generation owner. and it is his children. That would be,
Yeah.
that are coming into the business right now. His children who are adults,
Yeah, not children.
20s,
Yeah.
20s and 30s.
Okay.
But 20s and 30s?
Yeah, I think late twenties, early thirties.
And then what size family are we looking at as that delineates out?
Size.
How big is the family? Those two girls.
Yeah, just the two, the two.
Okay, so
To be
it's,
30, I didn't know something.
it's a pretty tight family. Okay.
Yeah.
And I asked that because of the comment earlier, right? Time moves on, things change. So we don't know what the daughter's plans are for the company. And when I look at projects like this, we just approved one. I will not call it similar. It was very different. Different area of the in the village. I think it served a different process targeting downsizers, first floor, single floor units, but still renter obligate, right? Property. I was for that property, but I think it gave our community a chance, or will give our community a chance, potential to downsize, free up some home stock, get some young families back in. If you're ever looking to sell, maybe we can get some families in there for you. But this type of a build in spec is vastly different from that. It's upper, lower. As we move through the generations in the decades, what does this property look like in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? It's gonna be vastly different than the last one we just approved, or we kind of moved along in the process. So that does have me a little worried on that end. Is it gonna be a giant crime magnet? I don't know, but it's just the build style type is different from that aspect. So that's why I ask about the I guess the company layout or plans as far as that structure goes. I did attend the neighborhood meeting. I appreciate you hosting that. You guys answer a lot of questions during that. Was myself, David Baum, which is his district. So appreciate seeing him there, and we saw the village president there. One of the things you said there was, and I have a note here. You were initially asked to present with a higher density. Who was asking that?
If that's what I said, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
I think what I would have said about a higher density is there were initially requests before this body for higher density. This was the density that we came to the city with, right? I don't remember that we cut units out.
Right, we encourage you to go lower,
But I mean, we came with,
lower than the previous proposal.
so they shared with us that something less than what was previously requested before the planning commission, if there was gonna
Yeah.
have any chance.
Yeah,
That would be
and
it.
I was going to finish with, you did recognize that your company wasn't interested in going higher density than what this proposal is. The company yourself is not interested in that.
No,
But I just took it as interesting because somebody had asked you, or at least that's the way I took it when you had said that.
So there was, the folks that own this property asked us, this is where it was. I'm not gonna say that because I don't know if that's where it was in your head, but this is where it went in mine. The folks that own this property, encouraged us to put more units on the property.
Yeah.
And Bob said, because this was in the works before I came, and Bob said, no, that's not how we lay out sites. And part of the reason for that is, and I don't want to get too out over my skis here, because I'm not a broker, but the more units you put on the property, the more valuable the property's worth. So the person, I'm not gonna presume that person, I don't know him or her, but presumably, the more units we were to be able to fit, then the more purchase price can potentially occur. That's just not how we lay out sites. That's what we showed Eagle River. It's a great example of just the spaciousness that we try to provide. Was I incorrect in that? Okay, I'm not a broker, so I don't want to. I have experienced that before. So I remember Bob saying, there was an encouragement to put more on it. And we said, no, this is the layout that you can.
That answers my question perfectly on that. The management company that you use, or it's part of division of your company, operates under the same name, or
Our company.
it is,
Not our company, but
so it is,
principal's company.
what's the company's name though?
Premier Real Estate Management.
Okay. I did take a look at the packet you guys sent us. And there are, sorry. on the relevant developments page, which I think is page 3 of it, you have 4 QR codes. And well, I'll just ask. So 3 of them currently, if you go to them, offer promotions for renting. So, and then you kind of you answered that fill rate, right? 20 to 30% retention rate. What's your fill rate?
So that's because those are properties that are just finishing up and we're in that lease up stage. So it's pretty common with every new development that you would see some sort of leasing special to get the property occupied. After that, unless we're having an issue with the property, which in our market rate developments that we build like this, and that would go for like Jackson and Hartford and Grafton, like some of those properties I mentioned before, that's not an ongoing thing. That's just to lease the property up.
Okay. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? You had mentioned you have a development in Jackson.
Did 2 developments. Yep.
Is the address of those in your thing that you have? Could you send those to me tomorrow? Just like to see the real thing. The other question I had too on the Eagle River development. I noticed on the aerials that it looks like you have storage sheds as part of that.
So
And
in
I'm-
Eagle River, there's a lot of recreational activities, snowmobiling,
yeah.
boating, fishing. So that is one of the few developments where we put, in addition to our 12 units with attached garages, we put detached garage structures that the tenants there could basically rent an additional garage space for their recreational things.
I was supposed to mention that. Like, make sure you mention that those detached garages are going to Eagle River.
Yeah, so that's not being proposed here. We're not doing another detached garage style.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
2 opposed, Russ and Bill. The motion carries. Our next agenda item is item B, Bradley Jansen, agent and prospective owner for the rail. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. RAO Farms LLC. Property owner, application to amend, transfer conditional use permit number 6-12 for the operation of a commercial stable and horse boarding facility pursuant to section 17.13, paren 2, paren JJ of the Village Zoning Code from property located at North 136 West 21238-21342 Bonniewell Road. And we will have a public hearing on this also. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do need to point out up front that the write-up indicates a transfer or amendment to a conditional use permit. In fact, we are issuing or would be issuing, if approved, a separate conditional use permit to a different owner who is acquiring the property. And that's the process that will ultimately take place. Back in 2020, the Rao Farms LLC, the original owner of the property, including a significant amount of land around this property, was granted a conditional use permit to operate the commercial stable and horse boarding facility with hours of operation of Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. With a professional trainer that provided training and riding lessons on site. They expected and had approximately 4 to 5 patrons visit daily, 1 to 2 hours at a time. There was no retail sales or special events held from that facility. Mr. Jansen is acquiring the property from the Rows and wants to continue the operation with one modification, and thus has applied for a conditional use permit. Under the terms of the existing permit, it is not legally transferable. So as is the case, we are requiring a new CUP for the operation, and the acquisition of that would be consistent with our process that we go through, including a public hearing concerning the application, a recommendation from the Plan Commission to the village board, and the village board taking final action. The proposed CUP operation includes, again, the operation of a commercial stable and horse boarding facility to a new owner. The one change that I mentioned, the current CUP allows up to 12 horses to be kept on the property, 12 horses that are not owned by the owner. In this case, the applicant is seeking that increase that from 12 horses to 18 with all the other conditions and operational characteristics of the business to remain the same. The site plan hasn't changed and again would continue as shown on the screen on the property in question. Staff comments, commercial stable and horse boarding facilities are allowed within the A2 zoning district of the village that this property is located within. Staff doesn't have any concerns with the change of ownership, nor with the increased number of horses from 12 to 18. Jordan points out for comparison purposes, Diamante Stables, which is also located in the village near the corner of Freistadt Road and Mary Booth. They operate a similar commercial stable and boarding facility on approximately 20 acres that maintains currently 15 horses with up to a 20-horse maximum. The staff recommendation is to approve a conditional use permit allowing the operation of a commercial stable and horse boarding facility from the property on Bonnewell Road, subject to 9 conditions included in the staff report. With that, we can go to public hearing.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall, located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents for the following. Application to, and we said it's a new CUP, right?
Correct.
Not a transfer. It's, a new CUP, conditional use permit number 6-12 for the operation of a commercial stable and horse boarding facility from the property described below. Applicant Bradley Jansen, agent / prospective owner for the Rao Farms LLC property owner. Property address N136 W21238 and N136 W21342 Bonnewell Road, Germantown, tax key number 064991. And a meets and bound description, property description is included in the notice. Copy of the application and a map showing the property described above are on file at the Community Development Department Planning and Zoning Services Office in the Germantown Village Hall and can be viewed on the village's website by following the link in the application. So with that, I will open it to anybody who would like to speak for or against the conditional use permit. Anybody here to speak in favor or against? Do we have WebEx?
According to Brenton, the WebEx system is not functioning. People can hear the meeting, but they can't call in.
Is there an option if they?
They can run down here and try and.
Okay,
Can you hear me
all
now?
right.
Can you hear me now?
So with that, I will close the public hearing. So do we have anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the 9%.
Do we have a second? All right. Discussion. Any discussion? Yes, Bob?
Two questions, actually. Jeff, I looked through the code. I didn't see anything that said there was any limit on the number of horses in terms of the village. So when they said they're increasing it 12 to 18, we don't really have the ability to say that's okay or not okay, correct?
No, we do is through the conditional use permitting process. There's no prescription in the code that says you can't unless there's a conditional use permit that has a restriction.
Okay. And then the second question was the write-ups, the information shared says the new owner plans to house 18 horses that they do not own. Does that in addition to horses that they will own and there'll be more than 18, or is that his only intent is to only house not unowned horses?
No, I'm sorry, to clarify, the condition does allow up to 18 horses not owned by the owner. So there can be additional horses that the owner owns. I believe Mr. Jansen is here this evening. Did you want to say anything or respond to that particular question? I think the question is, are there going to be more than 18 horses?
Yeah, understand the question, and the change to that that modification was solely to match the facility. I do not have horses, so.
Other comments, questions? Start that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No opposed, it's unanimous, motion carries. On to item C. Lisa Burke, Innovative Signs, agent for Truck Country of Wisconsin Incorporated, property owner, N128W21795 Holy Hill Road, sign application for wall and monument signage. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Truck Country of Wisconsin received site plan approval back in October of 2024 for their new 37,700 square foot commercial truck sales and service facility located at the southeast quadrant of the Holy Hill Road at I-41 interchange, as shown on the screen. The property has access to Holy Hill Road by way of High Point Pass, a recently completed frontage road that runs north and south on the east side of the property. This property actually abuts three roads, highways, US 41 to the west, Holy Hill Road to the north, and High Point Pass to the east. Access restrictions on 41 and Holy Hill Road limit access strictly to High Point Pass through a new driveway located on the south side of the storage facility, generally as shown on the screen and in this particular site plan. The proposal includes both wall signage and a monument sign. In terms of the monument sign that's proposed, it's got a number of things going on. A two-sided internally illuminated panel component on the top, a little over 7 feet tall by 12 feet wide, or 86 square feet per side. That's mounted above a two-sided electronic message center, just under 5 feet tall by 12 feet wide, a total of 57.6 square feet. So the total sign area proposed is 144 square feet per side, 288 total square feet. And that's a figure that will come into play shortly when I discuss code compliance. The sign base is comprised of two steel structural support posts, each covered or shrouded, if you will, by a 4x4 aluminum section of panels that are approximately 30 feet tall. The total sign height from the base of the support posts to the top of the sign is 50 feet, as shown on the renderings. The proposed location is in the southwest corner of the site, west of the new building, approximately 50 feet setback from the US 41 right-of-way. This monument sign will not extend more than 25 feet above the nearest road elevation, which is the northbound off-ramp to Highway 41. Again, a fact that will come into play shortly as we discuss the height of the sign. This graphic shows the proposed location in some detail, again, in the southwest corner of the property, landscaping that's proposed around the base. The second component of the sign application are for wall signage. Wall signs are proposed basically on three sides of the building. On the north elevation facing Holy Hill Road, a large truck country wall sign, 6.5 feet times 16 feet long, or 104 square feet. It's a single-sided, internally lit channel letters and logo that are mounted above the building entrance. There are some logo signs, a Freightliner, W. I'm sorry, I don't know what that stands for. Thank you. Detroit and Cummins logos, all signs that are approximately 2 feet by 16 feet, a total 32.5 square feet, single-sided, internally lit channel letters and aluminum cabinets mounted above the building entrance. There's also a canopy-mounted truck sales sign that's unlit, flat-cut letters mounted above the primary entrance, and some miscellaneous vinyl door graphics and metal magnetic door and other wayfinding signs mounted on the face of the building. On the west elevation facing US 41, a similar package of signs. One large truck country wall sign, 6.5 by 16 feet or 104 square feet, single-sided, lit channel letters and logo mounted above the building entrance. One Freightliner logo sign, one Western logo sign, all internally lit aluminum cabinet mounted letters above the building entrance. And again, some miscellaneous vinyl door graphics and metal magnetic signs, wayfinding and directional instructional signs mounted on the building. On the east elevation, facing High Point Pass, one canopy sign indicating service and parts, unlit flat cut channel letters above the customer service entrance, and some miscellaneous door graphics and wayfinding signage on the building itself. And there is some small vinyl door graphics on the south elevation facing the railroad. In terms of the wall signs, all of the wall signs that are proposed meet our sign regulations under section 17.46 of the zoning code. So those are code compliant and staff supports approval of those. The question that we have is for the monument sign itself. As I indicated earlier, I'll bring that up on the screen. The owner is requesting a larger and a taller monument sign than what the standard allowances are for monument signs in the zoning code. There's a section in the zoning code that provides for larger and taller signs, what I would term for properties that are topographically challenged, and that are commercial properties along Highway 41. This particular property, if you're familiar with the site, sits very low in the southeast quadrant of the interchange area. And so it's sort of down in the hole, so to speak, much like the gas station across the street on the north side of Holy Hill Road. And you can imagine or envision that sign that's allowed there to serve that gas station is a very tall sign, much like this one that's proposed. The provision in the code under section 17.50 reads, the height of a ground sign may be increased to 75 feet measured from the mean base elevation of the property, but in no case shall the sign be more than 25 feet above the topographically highest roadway within 200 feet of the sign location. In addition, the size of the ground sign may be increased from 80 square feet per side with a maximum of 160 square feet on all sides, up to 140 square feet per side or 288 square feet on all sides. So in this case, the owner is requesting an increase in the sign height from 10 feet to 50 feet and an area from 160 square feet total to 288 square feet total, all because of this particular provision in the zoning code that anticipates properties like this that have challenges to them. Again, the owner is requesting that, but there is some criteria that come into play. That section of the zoning code, it indicates that these provisions are discretionary and they're not prescriptive. So it's up to the Plan Commission to view or weigh the 6 criteria in that section of the code and determine the following: that the property is located within 500 feet of extending on either side of the right-of-way of US Highway 4145, which it does. You have to determine if the property has the B5 Highway Business Zoning District designation, which it does. You have to determine that the business operated on the property is intended to serve and is economically dependent upon traffic traveling upon US 41 and 45. Arguably, it does. It serves highway oriented traffic and vehicles. And the last three criteria read that there are exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual circumstances or conditions exist where literal enforcement of the sign code would result in severe hardship. Such hardship should not apply generally to other properties or be of such recurrent nature as to suggest that the sign code be changed. Again, in this case, you'd be weighing that effectively against the maximum or the standard maximum height of 10 feet and the area of 80 square feet per side or 160 total square feet. The fifth criteria, you need to determine that there is a requirement to preserve and the substantial property rights of the owner that are also possessed by their properties in the same vicinity that would not be adversely affected by the finding. And the sixth criteria, that the modification, or in this case, the allowance for the taller, larger signs would not materially impair or be contrary to the purpose or spirit of the sign regulations or the public interest. So the first three criteria, as I've indicated, those are easily met, in my opinion. It's the last three that is a little bit of a nuance to it that you need to determine exist in order to grant the allowance for the taller and the larger monument sign that is proposed. I would point out that the owner, through their agent, Innovative Signs, has provided a description, an explanation, if you will, titled Signage Modification Explanation. It was included in your packet that explains, in their words, why the taller, larger sign is justified. I would ask if the Innovative Signs agents, Jamie Dimon and Brian Harrigan, are they here this evening? Did you want to come forward and talk a little bit about the sign height and the size and your opinion as to why all the six criteria are met?
Yeah, real quick, thank you guys for considering this package in front of you. Our goal is to really appeal to our customers from the interstate, get them over to us efficiently and safely as well, give them the parts, service, sell some equipment to them, and then kind of get them on their way as efficiently as possible. So that was what I wanted to say on behalf of myself with Truck Country and the Dave Bernard here. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to turn it over to Jamie here.
Jamie Demon, I'm with Innovative Signs, and this is Brian Harrigan. Just basically here to answer any questions you have. We did propose the larger sign just due to the nature of the site. It's lower, and also the semi-traffic that's coming in. So we need something visible because they don't have as much capability to maneuver. So we wanted to make sure something large enough for them to see. So that's why we proposed it, and we can answer any questions about the design that you may have.
You have something to say also?
Yeah, we had just considered we wanted to make sure that they got to their destination without having to go through any other part of Germantown out of a mistake, out of missing it. I think that was pretty important to Truck Country and I think to Germantown as well. Just to make sure that they're not traveling around trying to get back to where they needed to go. I think we've all seen semis having to make difficult situations out of mistakes, having to get back to where they need to be. So we were trying to avoid that.
Okay. I'll leave it up to you if you want to wait or go back to your seat, but we're going to open it up to our discussion and there may be questions that we'll ask of you. Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to point out that let me get to my graphic here. With regard to the height, the proposed location of the monument sign, again, in the southwest corner, is at a point on the site that would have a finished grade elevation of 949 feet. If you add the 50-foot height of the proposed sign, that brings the top of the sign up to 999 feet elevation. Within 200 feet of that base proposed sign location, the nearest abutting roadway is that US 41 northbound off-ramp. And the elevation of that, the highest elevation within that 200-foot radius is approximately 975 feet. So if the code says you can't be more than 25 feet higher than 975, that means the top of the sign can't be more than 1,000 feet elevation would be the maximum, and the proposal is 999. So that's where we get the maximum height of the sign allowed is 50 feet. So when you look at, this graphic, I'm sorry, I don't have them closer together. You're not going to be seeing that entire portion of the sign. Arguably, you're going to be seeing the top part, the red bar with the address, and probably the first, maybe into the second section below of the support structures as you're traveling by on the off-ramp, and probably see just more of just the actual sign itself if you're southbound heading on Highway 41.
Won't see the pylons.
Correct. You won't see much of the pylons.
Okay.
But as shown, the pylons here are, and they're going to be covered by a 4-foot by 4-foot aluminum shroud with reveals where those black lines are. That would be the appearance for what's proposed. And let me jump ahead a little bit and talk about the sign regulations, because I think it's important. The way they're written, it's intended. We're intending to move away from the old school pylon mounted signs that look like this. In fact, I struggled a little bit to find one still in Germantown, and I think the last one was the Fleet Farm sign at the corner of County Line and Appleton. I wanted to add a picture of that, but as consistent with the agreement they have with the village, they took that down just in the last couple of weeks. So as part of their approved sign package, they'll be coming back with a different sign that'll meet the standard regulations. But as I indicated, we do have this provision that's intended to address those properties like this one that are challenged topographically are along the Highway 41 corridor. And the intention of the code, while it has some flexibility, is to try and encourage signs that are more into this sort of realm. And I don't know if you're familiar with any of these. This is sort of what's in mind with regard to the way the code is written. The only difference that you'd see here is that the bases of these are effectively a single base as opposed to two pillars, if you will. But the wording of the code doesn't say specifically you can't have two pillars, it just says a base. So really it comes down to, as we move forward with this sort of sign regulation, what the Planning Commission feels is code compliant. And Innovative Signs, working with Truck Country, it feels that this design is compliant, and this is what they're proposing. So you folks need to decide, is the taller height acceptable? Is the greater sign area acceptable? And is the design, the monument base and the design of the sign acceptable as well? So those are the things that you have before you, along with the wall signage that I mentioned earlier and showed in the graphics. The staff recommendation is to approve the wall and monument sign package for Truck Country, subject to 4 conditions. Those are in the staff report, and 2 of them basically are: 1, the Plan Commission determines that the 6 criteria under section 17.50 are or can be met. The Plan Commission determines that the proposed monument sign base comprised of 2 pylons covered with aluminum shrouds are code compliant and acceptable. And that the owner get electrical permits and that the owner provide some more detailed information on the electronic message board, graphics and the timing and that sort of thing that's required under the code. So that's the staff recommendation and open for conversation and discussion. Again, questions of the Truck Country and or Innovative Signs.
For discussion, I'll ask for a motion.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Comments? Yes, Josh?
Jeff answered all my questions pertaining to the, excuse me, the elevations. It's not gonna look like a 80-foot sign. It's gonna look like a 25-foot sign. It's not gonna be like when you're driving through Georgia and you can see Buc-ee's coming for 4 miles. It's light years ahead of the sign that's been there since I was born, so that's welcomed. And the message board, all I'd have to say on that is I understand why those are there, but just so it's not so blinding that it's like flashing different colors on the highway at night, because some of them in the area are obnoxious. So
Right.
that's it. Other than that, that's all. That's what I have.
I'm involved with some of those signs, and they have an optional control for brightness based on daylight. It's included?
Michael?
It's on.
It's on.
It's on.
A lot of times it's left out. We have a church on Fond du Lac Avenue. That thing, it must wake the dead in the cemetery in the middle of the night, I swear. It's terrible. But
Which one? You'll have to tell me about that. I would jump in and say that, that additional information that's required to be submitted is or does speak to those specific requirements in the code that require that there be an auto adjust feature, a dimming at night. Also addresses the timing of the messages and how long they can be up flashed. That is part of the code that we adopted a few years back. So I would be interested to know which church you're talking about.
modification on the structure. It's Fond du Lac. I think
Is it
it's
Fond du Lac, south of Dundas Bay?
Bethlehem Lutheran.
Okay.
No, that's not Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're getting a little off track there.
Right, that's one too.
I was just gonna address that
Oh,
we can adjust the
other than,
Okay.
I was just curious, how does this sign height, this one, we're talking about the monument sign, how does it relate to the gas station sign? Hasn't that been a problem over the years? They felt it was too low.
Right. Well, they certainly feel it's too low, but it's my understanding that this particular provision of the zoning code was written in order for that sign to be installed. With the exception of the monument base requirement, that's something that came later and is part of the sign regulations and not part of this variance provision, if you will, under section 17.50. So that sign was constructed consistent with this set of regulations and presumably went through the same exercise determining what the maximum height is.
I have no problem with this sign. I vote for yes for it, but my problem was if the other side's gonna come over and say, well, you did something for them that you didn't do for us. So they're all done the same.
I would say yes, and if they wanted to make that argument and wanted to put up a different sign, we'd make them shroud the pole or put some sort of, more significant base structure, because that one truly is, that's probably the last tall, single mounted pylon pole in the village.
That's it. That's all I had.
Russ?
Jeff, so you're just reaffirm this with me. I'm not sure I'm understanding this correctly. We do have some regulations in place in regards to the video board portion of this sign. That
Yes.
isn't required. We're not going to make a decision on it. It's already self-governing.
Yes, Jamie, did you want to say something to that effect? And I'll have a comment to that afterwards.
would abide by. There are regulations we have to follow with AMC, and the brightness can be adjusted, and we would adjust with those regulations, and also timing of messages as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I would read section 17.46, dealing with message boards. Electronic message boards may be allowed with approval of the Plan Commission and shall meet the following requirements. Let's see, the ones that pertain. Electronic message boards shall only display static messages. Messages shall not contain animation, effects simulating animation. Messages shall not contain text or images that dissolve, fade, scroll, flash, spin, or any other type of movement or motion during the message interval. The message interval, which is the minimum time amount a message is required to be displayed, shall not be less than 7 seconds. The transition interval, the maximum amount of time allowed to transition from one message to the next, may include some fading and dissolving or traveling, but shall not exceed 3 seconds. The active display area of the board shall be included in the calculation of the sign area. Electronic message boards shall be equipped with a sensor or other device that is programmed to automatically determine the ambient light level and adjust or dim the message board light level to not exceed a maximum brightness level of 0.3 foot candles above ambient light conditions during both daylight and nighttime hours. So there's some very specific lighting level parameters that have to be met.
Did you guys get that?
I appreciate the in-depth answer to the question I wish I didn't ask. I was just trying to, a simple yes or no would have been great.
Related to?
What related to this? So, one of the things, obviously the brightness is very important. We don't want to be blinding people, with the example mentioned earlier, but, Jamie was just mentioning, often for our group, when we have signs like this, we manage the frequency of when the message is out there and the timing. And I just mentioned that, we're in the community, so obviously if there was anything that was disruptive, call to our general manager who's local, myself or anybody at Truck Country, and we can modify that. But that's something that, because it's digital, it's very easily modified. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. That's something that my group usually has to manage across like 55 different locations. So there's usually something that we have to tweak, and it's pretty fast. It's all done from the web. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That it, Russ? Okay. Yeah, Bob.
So Jeff, I'm just read through the code, and I mean, the code indicates we have to meet all 6 criteria have to be present to be acceptable. So a couple of questions. One, it indicates preservation, enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same vicinity. Have you received any feedback or comment from anybody in the area that they were going to have a problem with the sign or the way the sign was being constructed?
No, we have not. Arguably, this proposal hasn't been presented other than through this Plan Commission meeting and posted on our website. That particular criteria, all 3 of those last criteria are taken from the zoning code section that deals with variances that the Board of Zoning Appeals typically grants. So there's some nuance to the language and how you want to interpret that. The preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same vicinity will not be adversely affected. I think that speaks to Bill's comment that you don't want to give somebody through this allowance something that another can't have themselves. And, arguably the gas station to the north has a sign that was obtained through this same process. My expectation, frankly, having gone through the situation with Green Bay Packaging, if you remember, we went back and forth with them over signage that they wanted to have originally on Holy Hill Road at the entrance, but because that wasn't part of their property, it was going to be in the right of way, and we went round and round, and eventually, they put a sign fairly deep into their property as their monument sign, and they don't have one along 41. So my expectation, frankly, is that if and when this sign is constructed, that Green Bay Packaging may be coming to ask for something similar, and we'll have to deal with that at that point in time.
Great. Okay. The one criteria, I mean, I'm being literal when I'm reading it, but I don't see it being met, and that is exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual circumstances or conditions exist where a literal enforcement of the sign code requirements would result in severe hardship. I mean, they moved to this location or selected this location without a guarantee that they were going to be able to put up a sign like this. I can't believe they have a business model that would have put them in severe hardship if they weren't able to put the sign up. So if it has to meet all 6 criteria, I don't get to seeing how we meet that the company is going to be in severe hardship unless we approve all these exceptions to our code. I mean, I understand that maybe nobody else is impacted and they meet the first 3, but I mean, we have a code. It has a criteria that says it has to be met. And when I read that, I don't see how us not allowing this is going to create a severe hardship for the business. So, I mean, that's where I'm on it. I don't see that we're following code and meeting all criteria if that's what the requirement is.
Sure, I can certainly appreciate that position. As I indicated earlier, I think if you come at it from the perspective of other properties that are similarly situated along 41, do they have the ability to put up a monument sign that people can see that meets the code? And currently the code for single user allows a sign only up to 10 feet in height. Because of the location of this property, and not having any portion of it, that's at the same elevation of the adjoining roadway, 41 or Holy Hill Road for that matter, a 10-foot high sign isn't going to do anything for anybody.
But it's not just the height that's the issue, correct? I mean, if you read the language in the code, their base is in conformity with what we require as well. So, I mean, if they meet the height, I'm okay with it, but now we're making an exception for the base under a criteria that says we don't allow them to do it, they're going to experience severe hardship, which I don't see how that's going to be the case.
Well, again, I can, sitting through Board of Appeal meetings and hearing arguments across the continuum of, what's a hardship.
Right.
You get a little exposure to that sort of thing, and you tend to view things a little bit differently. To me, the extraordinary unusual circumstance is a large property adjacent to a U.S. highway that literally is 25 plus feet, lower in elevation, and it's so close to the road, to the highway right away, that you really can't see much of it. And so the exceptional circumstance, again, a monument sign of 10 feet isn't going to do anything. It isn't going to advertise or even help wayfind to the property. So for me, that would be the unusual type of circumstance, but.
Words in Bob's mouth. It's, point is that they should have been aware of this prior to building. I mean, looking at the topographic plans and looking at site distances and things like that, they should have known about this, which could have trumped the deal if they had the impression that the village would deny this, they may not have built here.
Agreed. Yeah. So I must get the sense that, I mean, whether it was they weren't aware of it at the time or not, they're coming in after the fact. And I read the code that all ground signs should be mounted on a decorative masonry base constructed of the same or similar materials as the principal building. Other structural components, including but not limited to any metal or wood support post or pylon, should be covered with the same or similar decorative or compatible material. So to me, it's not just the height. I take it that they're asking for several exceptions. And when I read the criteria that says if we don't allow it, they're going to experience severe hardship. When you read their responses to why they're going to experience severe hardship, all they do is indicate they're going to have reduced foot traffic. Well, that reduced foot traffic is not severe hardship in at least the way I would define it. So that's the criteria I've been stuck on when I read through this. So.
Russ?
Can I ask Truck Country a question? Maybe you can answer this. What's your business is predicated off of, oh, there's a sign, I'm getting off and gonna visit the shop.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Our business, on highway business, so trucking industry. So people are on the highway, customers are on the highway, need to know that we're there. So sign definitely notates our existence.
I understand that. Maybe you're not in a position to answer specific here, but what percentage of your business is done via that?
Depends on the locations. You know, we have number of different locations, but on highway business draws business from on highway. So from a percentage standpoint for this location, I'd say 50 to 60%.
That's your projection for for this
Yes.
location?
Yes.
Okay, now that Russ asked my question,
No, go ahead.
I had a couple. Did you want to make a point?
Yes, but I can wait.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question too. What percent of your market will come off of that freeway? I mean, roughly. You said what it was
Sure.
50 to 60?
50 to 60% would be mine.
Just because a trucker sees your sign and he knows he
Correct.
needs some kind of maintenance or something.
Absolutely, right?
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, I would
Is
say it's, especially with the interstate real close. We have this in Indianapolis, where we have another facility that we own. I would say that one's probably in the 65 to 75% range. Again, it's a larger city, but still, you know, that's how people usually find us. They're driving trucks and really a lot of it comes down to they may not know we're here. And then this is our opportunity to do that, to notify them. And the two brands that are up at the top of that sign, the Freightliner and the Western Star, they're very well known, very well recognized within the trucking community. So if we can get them to see that, then they're going to know, hey, that's the brand that I drive, and I can go in there and you know, get my parts, service, whatever I might need in terms of that transactional piece. So you do have a lot of the truckers that will need headlights, wiper blades, some more consumable type things that they'll buy pretty frequently, and that's what we're hoping to get on top of, you know, people that have the need for service work. Warranties and different things like that. They'll look at that brand name and know that they can come to an approved facility, if you will, to get service. So for us, it's a pretty important aspect of what we do. And Jamie, I don't know if you want to address like the pillars themselves. So I know that was a question about the building material, and I know we're trying to match that up with the building.
Right. You had brought up concern over the base, so we actually picked this material to match the building materials and also the color palette. So it was thought out and to architecturally match that. These are architectural shrouds. So they're covering steel poles, so we're not leaving them exposed and open, we're covering them. Element.
Those are steel versus aluminum? Maintenance is painting?
No, the shrouds themselves are aluminum. But
Yes.
they're covering.
Yeah, the steel
what's-
poles.
Steel poles.
Yeah, I get it.
Which will go through engineering.
Okay. It sounds like most of these exceptions are because we're within 200 feet of the freeway?
Yes, this particular provision, one of the criteria is to be within 500 feet of the highway corridor.
So I don't know who could answer this, but has there been any, does DOT require certain, do they have things in their specification? I work with DOT a lot, I used to. And I never got into the details of where they would, because it could be a safety issue. You know, if it's really bright, if there's a lot of stuff going on, it's going to distract you. And that's the very reason we have our code, because it's distracting. We try to, there's enough distractions on the road, so we're trying to minimize that. So I'm just throwing it out there to you guys, if you did any research to find out if DOT is requiring, because this is a big sign.
To my knowledge, they don't have jurisdiction over signage in the village of Germantown like this.
Yeah, I know it's outside the right of way.
Of an EMC next to a highway is the corners of Brookfield. So that is right along 94
Yeah.
and it's similar.
Okay. I have no problem with the height. It makes perfect sense. Obviously, somebody did the math to come up with 999. Because a lot of times engineers like to round things off to 1,000, but I understand why you didn't round off to 1,000. I'm a little concerned with the size of that upper part, that sign part. I don't know why it's so large and, you know, what went into it? Why can't you follow what our code requires? The height I understand because you can't see it because of the criteria that we have, but I don't understand why the sign is that big.
I think a little bit to the mic.
A little bit of that has to do with the opaque background on the face.
Yeah.
The black is not lighting. So as far as what you are gonna see is only the white and the red lit. So as far as distance.
Your view,
that you're viewing it,
the screen
Yeah.
needs to be larger based, is there some math as far as sight distance for a truck traveling 70 miles an hour to be able to see what you want them to see?
Not offhand, no.
Okay.
I think our brand manufacturers say they have that, but sometimes we give them a hard time because at a distance, especially black on black here with these two brands, albeit they're very recognizable in the industry, sometimes you just can't read them very well. Probably with the exception of the W, Jeff, I love when you were saying that earlier. Because when I first started the business, I didn't know what that was, but Western Star, those people that drive those trucks, they are fiercely loyal and they're usually work trucks. So just an interesting aspect with that. But with the Freightliner, that is something that we want to get more visibility on, for that trucker to see it.
I had a couple more.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. I just don't want to start a sign war here. I don't know how many more potential developments can go in along this corridor and everybody's trying to outdo everybody else's sign, Got to follow our criteria in that. We had discussed, we have to justify based upon these certain questions, and if I can go through them and you can get my read on this. The business operated on such parcels is intended to serve and are economically dependent upon traffic traveling upon US Highway 4145. You said 50 to 60%. To me, that's a big chunk of change. Okay, so that's met. Exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual circumstances. Bob brought up the discussion that, well, we should have known about this. I'm a little different on that. I mean, the exceptional circumstances is you're in a hole and you need to get that sign high, just like we did with I think that was a Shell station on Holy Hill Road, right? I think,
Mobile Shell, it's bounced around for.
well, they might have changed it. So I remember going through the same thing because nobody could see it. So that's an exceptional condition to me. Preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same vicinity will not be adversely affected. I don't see how they could be adversely affected unless you're blocking the view of another truck company just down the road, but not the case. And the modification will not materially impair or be contrary to the purpose and spirit of the sign code or public interest. I think that condition is met too. So I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Okay, well, a couple of things. One, I think it's important to note, not that it should necessarily, offset, but Truck Country did remove a very large billboard that was situated in approximately the same location. It was something that was discussed way back when the conditional use permit and the site plan was approved for the project. And both Truck Country and the owners of the property at that time, who they were looking to acquire it from, agreed to remove that billboard that frankly, is cluttering up our section of 41. We've got a number of billboards, and I'm a very strong advocate for not wanting billboards in our community. But I am an advocate for at least signage for a business that's reasonable. And in a case like this, I believe that the code was changed to include this provision and allow the Plan Commission to make the decision and not the Board of Appeals, because the thought was that the Plan Commission would exercise a little bit more flexibility or reasonableness and not the same rigidity that the Board of Zoning Appeals does when they review variance requests for zoning appeals. They could have not changed the code and simply left the standard the way that it was. And if you needed to deviate for whatever reason you felt was important, then you could go to the Board of Appeals and make an argument. But for some reason, the village changed the regulations and built in this provision to allow for signage for properties along 41 that have challenging characteristics. And this property does, arguably. Its relative location, its topography it's challenging. And Truck Country, and I don't want to be accused of advocating for this particular development, but I would say that they took a piece of property that's at our doorstep and cleaned it up. It looked very rundown and junky for a long, long time. Part of the redevelopment effort and process, I think it's to allow for some reasonable signage so the business can flourish and attract more business and more residents and visitors to the village. And I think this sign, while it pushes the limit in terms of the area and the height, it's all within the provisions that are provided for, subject to the Plan Commission discretion and your review of it. And that's why staff's recommendation is to approve it. But subject to your findings that these criteria are met. And I do understand how you can interpret the criteria dealing with the hardship and the preservation of enjoyment and enjoyment of substantial property rights for others. I think, in my opinion, that this proposal meets those criteria. And I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Thank you for being in Germantown.
Sorry, appreciate it.
So we have a motion and a second.
Can I clarify one thing? Well, actually, two things. First thing I want to clarify, Jeff, can you just put up, maybe I misunderstood what you said earlier. You had a screen with like 10 signs on it. All had similar bases, which I thought I understood you to say this is what Germantown as a village was trying to push signs toward. When I look at that and you make that comment, none of those sign bases look like what the Truck Country sign base looks. So I just want to clarify, when you said that, did I understand it correctly that you said Germantown was trying to push signs more to a base such as those shown on the screen?
More like this and less like that.
Well, when I look at Truck Country, I would say that theirs looks more like the Walmart and the Crown Plaza than it does the other signs that you just showed.
Well, and that's why, my recommendation is subject to your determination that it's code compliant. I believe that the Truck Country proposal meets the letter of the law, so to speak.
Okay.
The posts are covered with the 4x4 shroud. Arguably the material, it's not, the tilt up panel of concrete, but 50 feet high, it can't be. But the shroud, I think if you look at the Napleton sign that's the top row in the middle, I think that post or that pillar, if you will, with the blue horizontal pieces, the break points between those sections of what appear to be silver, aluminum shroud, is probably as close to the Truck Country proposal, except that has two of those instead of one. And again, while I say that the intention is to move more in this direction, there's obvious language in the code or latitude in the wording that would allow for the two-pillar kind of proposal. But the question is, I question it too. How narrow or how wide should those pillars be to sort of be code compliant? Could you arguably take a 12-inch diameter steel pole and wrap, duct tape around it and say that's covered? I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. But the aluminum shroud, to make it look more like, one of these, does make sense to me. Now, does it make sense to the Plan Commission? And at what point do you say this is code compliant and this isn't?
Got it. I mean, the second thing I wanted to clarify, just so I'm clear, number 4, the fourth criteria doesn't just indicate there's an exceptional or extraordinary or unusual circumstance. That's not the criteria. Okay, I understand there's a exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual circumstance here, that they're lower to the freeway or the highway and they need a higher sign. The whole criteria says, or conditions exist where a literal enforcement of the sign code requirements would result in severe hardship. That's the criteria. The criteria is not just that an extraordinary circumstance exists. It's that if they don't meet our code, or if we don't make an exception for that extraordinary circumstance, that their business is going to have a severe hardship. I'm come from the finance and accounting world. So one, severe hardship means to me financial hardship, and two, when there's code or regulations that say you must meet all 6 criteria, it's black and white. It's not really gray. You either do or you don't. And then, I mean, from where I come from, when I read that, I mean, if the code specifically states you have to meet all 6 criteria to be eligible, I don't see how we meet that criteria. So if you're saying we can make an exception and not have to meet one of the criteria, it's okay, that's fine. But if the code says you have to meet all 6 and I don't think you meet one of them based on the language of the code, then I don't know why we have the criteria then.
No, I understand what you're saying. And you're right. The second clause in that first sentence of number 4, it does really spell out what the hardship is. You know, if you require them to build a 10-foot high monument sign, or a monument sign that's no taller than 10 feet and no more than 80 square feet per side, does that create a severe hardship? And that's for you to decide. In my opinion, if you had a 10-foot high sign that's located adjacent to effectively a very steep grade that's 25 to 30 feet high, then what's the use of the sign?
Yeah, I mean,
It
but we're not
doesn't
just
do the
asking,
purpose.
we're not
doesn't
just
serve
being
the
asked for
purpose.
height, we're being asked for height, size, and a base that differs from what you said we were trying to move toward. So, I mean, as I read it, we're being asked for 3 exceptions, not just 1. So.
Can you, as much as I don't want to ask this, can you reread that or show this to me? Does it say and or? In the hardship
Yeah,
versus,
number 4, or.
or conditions exist. So we can go with either of those. It doesn't say and. So you're not being asked to have to meet both of those. That's stating or is, does it meet A, the first sentence, first portion of that sentence, or the following statement? So if I see or in a legal document or an ordinance, I'm going to look at which one of those. Or it could be both, right? I fully understand what you're saying, to the point of if we aren't meeting all 6, or in your opinion, we don't meet all 6. As far as the base size of it, the base of it goes, would it make more sense if this was out of that gully to have a more decorative base and be more in line? They're also stating they went with the materials they chose because it matches the facade and design of the building they're trying to. So now is the facade in the building design that they are trying to match too plain for the community? It's already been approved. So if they're matching that design from an architectural, I guess you want to call it that, standpoint, I think I'm okay with that. But I would hinder on the or if we're gonna look at that number 4. Definitely think the first portion of that is definitely met. I think I could argue the second portion is too, but I'd actually like to see a financial source document for that portion of it. But they're saying 50 to 60, and another one of their locations is upwards of 70%. I'm not the expert in the trucking needs and that type of an industry. I have to go off the word that they're bringing to us at this point. But the or, I guess, is what I'd lean on in that.
I would say that severe hardship would be losing 50 to 60% if you trust the numbers of your business.
50 to 60% of your business if the sign size meets the criteria that Germantown has. You know, we already said the height qualifies based on the exception, but are we but then the base and the sign, are we losing 50 to 60% of our business if the size of the sign meets our criteria? I can understand maybe we're losing 50 to 60% if nobody can see it from the freeway, but are we losing 50 to 60% if the sign meets the requirements of the village sign ordinance?
Which
code?
Which you're saying, you're putting it in the in a hole where nobody can see it.
I don't know that. And I mean, when you guys wrote the criteria to put in your code, you didn't know that. Your code just, the village code just specifically states, do you meet them or do you don't meet them? For me, I mean, you either meet all six or you don't meet all six. And, you know, as I noted, I don't believe that all six are met. So we can all have a different opinion, but that's my opinion is that if we're following the letter of the code, I don't believe we meet the 6 criteria.
Right, and ultimately, it doesn't require a unanimous decision either.
I was on Board of Zoning Appeals for quite a while too, and dealt with these questions a lot. And I think the biggest trap was to take this stuff literally. I mean, it is subjective on this. And in this case, I think it is a hardship if we require them to follow our code and therefore impacting their potential marketing and business. As far as the putting anything else but the covering those pylons, first of all, nobody would see it because it's in the hole again. And it's such a tall structure. I don't think, you know, you're trying to make it look balanced and what do I know? I'm not an architect, but it just wouldn't seem right to start slapping other structure on those poles going up to me. So I think this is a good balance in trying to meet our criteria. Any other comments? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed. Motion carried. Thank you for coming tonight. Last agenda item is the status report on Village Center District Community Engagement Program.
You bear with me for just a second, please. So as the Plan Commission is aware, back on February 2nd, the village board met and was given a presentation by Mitch Brous with SRF Consulting. He presented the proposed community engagement program to the village board. I appreciate those that reviewed and Plan Commission members who reviewed and commented on the engagement program. As I mentioned to the board, we had some comments from Plan Commission members that didn't necessarily call for any changes to the program, but were more geared towards the ongoing function of the effort. And we'll continue to operate in a way that is respectful of your input on the process. The consultant presented to the board the engagement program, a copy of which was included in your packet. Given the board's discussion and their feedback, there was one major change that was made, particularly to the timeline. It was extended out an additional approximately 1 month to extend into July to allow for one of the pop-up events being held on July 4th. That was discussed at the board level, and I thought it would be good to have one of the pop-up events held on July 4th. I would point out that, as was the original proposal, the one that the board sanctioned indicates that the activities are to include one community survey, an online survey that would also be produced in hard copy, an interactive mapping portal that would allow for people to view and comment on various aspects of the project, a dedicated project website, email, the website, and social media posting and notifications, along with traditional media press releases, focus group meetings with interest groups. There are 2 of those included in the program, and 2 pop-up events. Also presented to the board was essentially a schedule of items that could be added either At the time, the board was first considering approval of the engagement program, or they could be added as time goes on through the process. And I think there was no additions made, but I think it was with the understanding that if we get to a point that we feel we need to add something, whether it be a pop-up event or possibly even a second survey, we would do so. As you know, the original scope was to focus on the 3 parcels owned by the village, the former Flower Source, the Ascension, and the Grosnick properties. The board, through the direction of the village president, asked to expand the scope to include, I thought was a good term that he assigned to it, the West Main Street properties that would include the golf course, and the village recycling center. And so just kicking around at a staff level, the thought was, while we're trying to be very specific with regard to the 3 parcels the village owns, and maybe want to be a little broader in terms of other land uses on the west side, maybe we have a separate survey dealing with the west side versus the balance of the village center district. So that's going to be discussed, and the consultant will be presenting his concept for the community survey to staff, and we'll bring that to the Plan Commission for your consideration as well. Again, I indicated that the packet includes an updated engagement program that you should hang on to and take a look at. We'll keep the Plan Commission members advised on the status of the project as with every meeting going forward, and in between make you aware of any activities that you should be interested in or attending, or quite possibly that you will be participating in as we go forward. So with that, that's really all that I wanted to give you an update on. And if you have any questions, you can ask them now or let me know going into the future.
I was glad to see they pushed the schedule. I mean, showing a January start for community engagement, we already lost January. So this is a little more realistic, and it's good to get into July, like you said, for the 4th of July thing. So what is the very next thing is the community engagement program workshop. They're showing that in early February.
Well, frankly, that was the February 2nd meeting with the village board to get their feedback. Right now, the website and the social media portals, if you will, are being set up by the consultant. And they're also beginning their work on the community survey. Those are the first activities that they're going to embark on. And we'll let you know what the status of that is as we get that information.
What do you see the commission doing? What are we reviewing, this commission?
I think at every step in the process, beginning with the original engagement plan to get some feedback from you on that, but at every step in the process, frankly, the original, village center process that centered around the Pilgrim at Mequon Road intersection, in my opinion, didn't involve the Plan Commission nearly enough as it should have. And it was a process that initially was driven by the owner of the property in that particular area. And the board responded in a timely manner to try and get something done. And I think in the end, we didn't get enough feedback from the appropriate people, the residents, the property owners. And the change in direction, I think, is welcomed and warranted. And we'll keep you involved. The plan is to keep the Plan Commission involved in the forefront, unlike the previous effort, and going forward.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, John?
So the pop-up event will be on the 4th of July as part of like the celebration, or incorporated into the park, or?
The logistics of that have yet to be determined. At the board meeting, I thought it was a great idea, thinking personally that, the 4th of July never happens on a weekend, right? So we'll have the fireworks on some other day, and it won't actually be on the 4th of July. Well, 4th of July is on a Saturday. So, you know, the consultant, they'll be driving up from Madison to participate in a pop-up event on July 4th. And so I would venture a guess that logistically we'll probably end up wanting and asking for one or more plan commission members to get involved in some way too. I remember the 2050 plan, we had a pop-up event in the park. Emily and I, at the time, we sort of took turns staging it. I think it was, the food in the park thing, whatever the title of that is, I forget, Taste in the Germantown. And that was a pretty good event. We had a lot of turnout, and a lot of people just strolled over because it was casual atmosphere, strolled over, and we had some activities for kids and some other things. It turned out to be a good approach, I thought, one of the better ones for the effort. Okay, anybody else? Great. Thank you for that update, Jeff. That concludes our meeting. Unless there's any announcements that any members have, no? Okay. So this Plan Commission meeting is over at 9:09 PM. Thank you for attending and thank you for listening.
Good night. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go.